Deer. They're cute, cuddly, and delicious.
Venison.
We all love their food, but pushing them can be quite the challenge. It's hard enough for our scout to get them underneath our town center without walking back, but it's harder still if there's an obstacle blocking their path. On maps such as Hideout, deer can spawn outside of our walls. We'd like to get them inside, but, well, there's a wall in the way. We could delete part of the wall, but that allows enemy units to run into our base. We could also use a sheep to hold open the gate, but we need to eat that sheep for food, and we risk an enemy stealing the sheep while it's holding the gate open. But there is a trick to getting a deer to run inside of a gate, using just the scout, the deer, and our random AoE 2 knowledge. So in this video, we'll cover the basics of deer behavior and show off how to get the deer through a gate without using any extra units to hold it open. We'll start from the beginning. When one of our units gets close to a deer, the deer is frightened away and runs 2 tiles in the opposite direction. Once we start pushing the deer, we need to stay close to it. Immediately after the deer starts running, a 4-second timer begins. After this timer ends, and while the deer is standing still, it has a random chance to start walking back to its starting location if there's no unit nearby to scare it a second time. The deer continues asking itself whether to stay or to go about once per second until it either is scared again or decides to walk back. Once the deer decides to turn around, it does whatever it can to return to its spawn position. It no longer fears player units, but ignores them while walking back. Typically, this is, well, annoying, as we need to wait for the deer to walk all the way back before you can try to lure it again. But, occasionally, this behavior can be used to our advantage, as we can create a specific path for the deer to follow. Here's an example of Eddie building a palisade wall towards his town center. In order to get back, the deer must walk all the way around this wall, heading directly under the TC where the villagers can kill it. But, for the most part, we don't want the deer to head back, and there are 2 ways to stop the deer's walk prematurely. The first is to shoot it once with a villager. One shot is not enough to kill the deer, and the animal will run 2 tiles away from the villager who shoots it. The scout can then continue pushing it. In the original game, shooting the deer would cause the villager to lose whatever resources they were carrying, but in the definitive edition, we can shoot the deer with, for example, a lumberjack, and then return them to work without losing the wood they were carrying. The second way to make the deer pushable again is to block its path back to its destination. Here we have a deer trapped inside of our hideout walls, trying to get back to the outside. There's no way for it to escape, so after a while, it will give up on its pathfinding calculations and stop trying to return to its starting location. At that time, we can restart pushing it back towards our town center. Now that we understand how deer walk back, let's return to how to push deer. If there's an obstacle between the deer and the tile 2 spaces ahead of it, the deer tries to run around this obstacle. Here we have a gate and a long wall to the side of it where one piece is deleted. We can push the deer through the gate and it will try to run 2 tiles forward, but since the gate is blocking its path, the deer will take the scenic route and run all the way around the wall. While the deer is running, we can move our scout into the gate. As long as we get to the deer's destination, we can start pushing it again towards the TC. But since the deer spends more than 4 game seconds running around the wall, it will have a chance of walking back immediately once it stops, so we need to ensure we're right next to it and ready to start pushing. Then we can bring it into the TC just like normal. And now we come to our final trick. We have the same setup, but this time we don't have a hole in the wall. The deer doesn't know where to go, and it gets stuck in the gate and stops. Notice, however, that the deer freezes for a few seconds right next to the gate. I think this pause happens while the deer is retrying its pathfinding calculation, attempting to find a route around the gate, and only finishing after too many attempts without finding a path. If we push the deer at a bit of an angle, it'll start running along the wall, giving us time to use our scout to open the gate. And the deer will now find a path to its destination through the open gate. And from here, we can continue pushing the deer towards the TC, just like we've been doing. This trick was pretty useful back on Arena when we didn't want to delete a stone wall and replace it with a house just to push in a deer. It's pretty difficult to pull off, so not many players will go for it, but it's oh so satisfying when it works. The definitive edition always places player deer inside of the walls on Arena, but the trick is still useful on Hideout where the deer still can spawn outside. Try it out in your own games and see if it's useful for you. Thank you all very much for watching. Extra thanks for everyone supporting me on Patreon, and I'll see you next time.